So we have Hayley Klein, the boss lady. That's what the graphic says right there on the screen.
They just say that to make me feel better about myself.
I know. I was really, Tuesday is normally the day all the salespeople come to Artesia, and we have a sales meeting, and then the programming people come to Artesia, and so we go to lunch, and then we have a programming meeting. And programming people, they're too busy. They can't come down here. And the salespeople are sick, and they can't come down here. And so it's like, no, I guess nobody likes us. I told Tana, I said, none of our staff likes us here in Artesia. Nobody wants to come to Artesia today.
Oh, boo. Artesia's great.
I know. It's just so sad. But we were talking about the vice president's little meeting that he had. Is it next weekend? Is the Carlsbad Mayor's Oil and Gas Summit down in Carlsbad, and that'll be
yes, Thursday the 20th. Is
20th.
That
That'll be another big opportunity for the oil and gas industry to shut their stuff and all that good stuff. But it all kind of brings about how important it is for people to vote in this upcoming election. Looking over the last couple of election cycles, it seems like this part of the state just has not turned out to vote. Is that kind of what you've seen in the trends the last couple of elections?
I remember the last sort of big general election that we were pushing hard on voter registration. We got, I think our voter turnout was 50.4% or something like that, which was just a smidge over the state average. But I was looking at Los Alamos, and this is how you can tell that I'm a bulldog.
Okay.
Los Alamos voter turnout was like 87% or something like that. And it wasn't 87, but it was high. It was in the 80s, somewhere around there. And I was thinking, there's no way, we have to do better than 50%. We are not average. We shouldn't act average on election day.
That's right.
And elections, it's so easy to vote now, right? So they have convenience centers. So you can go to any one of those convenience centers in your county and vote.
Right.
In Artesia, that's really easy to do. I've never waited more than 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes to vote.
Right. The last time I had to wait in a long line to vote was, believe it or not, the municipal.
Yeah, I think that's the same for me too. It's not. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to vote.
Right.
The polls open at 7. They close at 7. So you can do it. You can go early. You can request an absentee ballot. It's so easy to vote. You just have to go do it, and it will matter. And I know a lot of people feel like it doesn't matter.
I know.
I get that.
I do.
But it definitely doesn't matter if you don't vote.
Right.
Or it does. Maybe it does.
Yeah.
But my point is you don't know. I mean, so if you believe your vote's not counted or it's whatever, it definitely won't be counted if it's not there. So just go vote. Just go vote. And think about who your candidates are. Really, truly think about who your candidates are. And if you don't know, ask somebody. And we're happy to do research. At the chamber, call us. We'll tell you. We can't tell you how to vote or who to vote for, but we'll tell you what each of the candidates have done. We can share voting records. We've done a little research on the constitutional amendments. We'll help you with those things.
And that may be for another discussion. Maybe next week we could talk about the constitutional amendments, because when you flip the ballot over, I don't know how the sample ballots, how the ballots are going to come out. If it's going to be all the people you vote for on the front and the ballots and bonds on the back, I'm not sure how it's laid out. But there are 3 constitutional amendments that you get to vote on, and there are 3 bond questions that you get to vote on. And I made this case yesterday. Look at everything we went through with COVID and what happened to the schools, and how the school districts were really restricted in what they could and could not do with regard to the governor's health orders. And that was because in a previous administration, the voters approved the governor appointing a public education department and taking over all of that authority.
Yes.
So the constitutional questions that are on the ballot are important because they may not seem important today, but at some point in time, they're going to come back and bite you, and you're going to say, well, how come they're allowed to do that? Well, it's because the voters approved this, in 2022.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to learn more about the constitutional amendments and then the bond questions as well. what those are supposed to fund.
Yeah, let's talk about them next
They
week.
look pretty. The bond questions look pretty nominal. I mean, they look like
Yeah, and they're there time after time. We
for the
renew those
senior
a lot.
centers and for the
Yeah.
education buildings and so forth,
the libraries.
and the library, and then the higher education stuff.
Yes.
But the constitutional questions are important.
Those are big questions. I mean, just think about that. If you're amending the Constitution, I mean, yes, it's the Constitution of New Mexico, but that's your baseline. And when you start messing with your baseline, you make essentially permanent changes theoretically.
Yeah. So today is the deadline to register if you want to vote in the November election?
Well, today is the deadline to register to vote. You can do that on paper or you can do it online. And that is to get registered, to be a registered voter in order to vote someday between now and election day or on election day.
Okay.
New Mexico does now have same-day registration.
Okay.
So, but the only way to do that is to do that when you go to vote. So you can't get online or you can't come down to the chamber and register to vote and then go vote a little bit later down at your convenience your voting convenience place or whatever. You have to go to the place where you are going to vote, register to vote, and then you can vote. I would argue the safest thing to do is just to become a registered voter today, if you are not already.
Okay.
It literally takes like 5 minutes.
Well, it's because you guys register people at the chamber.
Right, we do it.
So you know how long it takes.
You fill out the little form. It just asks you some basic information. We'll take care of the rest. We will fold your form. We will give you a receipt. We will turn it into the clerk's office, and you will be a registered voter, and you will receive your little voter registration card in the mail, which, by the way, you don't exactly need. They don't require you to show it
That's
when
for
you go
another
vote. That's
day.
a different conversation. but you do have that little card, which tells you, what districts you're in and all of that kind of stuff. It's good information. The other thing is if you want to change your address, if you're already a registered voter, but you just need to change your address or you change your party affiliation, you can do that. But today is the deadline
right.
for that.
To be able to vote early in the November
Unless
election.
you want to do same-day voter registration.
Which means you don't do anything right now and then show up on election day.
And go vote, yeah.
And
but
register and vote that day.
You register to vote, and then you can go vote at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with that. I'm just old-fashioned.
No. Well, there's a lot of things about our election process that I wish we would modify. There are some things that you don't want to go back to, like we talked earlier about going back to horse and buggy days.
Yes.
We don't need to do that.
Yes.
But I think as far as the election process is concerned, I think there's a few things that we could kind of pull back on and go back to, but we're not going to. So let's utilize the system that we have right now.
Right.
But I agree with you. It's really, really important that people get out and vote. You read the news, you see the news, you hear the conversations, you're mad, whatever. Mm-hmm. And even if you are concerned about the system, you still need to go vote, and maybe we can overcome some of those concerns and issues that may pop up. The more of us that turn out to vote, the less likely they can get away with finding a box of ballots in a closet somewhere.
Yes.
at 10 o'clock on election
that's
night.
actually really true. And in Southeast New Mexico, we often feel forgotten, or, we're just this little part of the state that nobody cares about. But at the same time, we have to demand it. I mean, and when you only have a 50% voter turnout, you're not exactly demanding it.
That's right.
So
you can go by the chamber today and get registered to vote. And if you have any other questions about any of that, I'm sure Hayley and your staff will
we'll be
take
happy
care
to
of it.
help.
Since
Any
you're the
one of
boss
us
lady,
can help
right?
you. Yeah.
All right, Hayley, thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next